Hey, this is Josh with Analog Reviews, and today we're going to be going over the VGA, VGX awards and what merits they have and whether or not they're relevant today and what we thought of the show in general. Joining me today is Nathan.
Hello.
Trent.
How's it going?
Val.
Here.
And Andrew.
Howdy.
So what did you think was good about the show? Highs and lows?
The high point of the show was some of the interviews and the trailers. Although they didn't really show anything new. They weren't exactly world premiere trailers like they claimed, because a lot of it was just reclip footage from trailers that previously aired. The low points of the show were, well, basically the awards in general. They didn't really make any sense for the winners, and they had a whole bunch of irritating segments, such as the concert for GTA and cutting to like a bunch of idiots.
What do you think, Andrew?
It's just complete nonsense. I mean, the awkwardness from the guests and the interviewers just didn't seem all solid, and organization was completely chaotic.
Yeah, for me the high was definitely Joel McHale. His sense of humor and being a smartass to everyone and everybody not really responding to his comments was what kept me watching the show. It certainly wasn't the awards because, I mean, halfway through the show they decided that they were going to do the Game of the Year award, which is typically something you leave to the end of the show. Then it was kind of downhill after that.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Joel McHale was a bit of a dick, but he was entertaining to watch.
Yeah, he seemed completely out of his element and like he didn't care, but I definitely liked his comments and how at unease it put everybody.
You could definitely tell that some of the developers were getting pissed off with his attitude, just from like their facial
During
expressions.
one of the interviews for Dying Light, the Mikhail was just going off on the creator developer, and it's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, he liked that game actually. That was the one thing he liked.
Yeah, he
I thought
was
it was pretty
clapping
funny how
for
he
it
just-
too. Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone else, it was just like a trailer, and then they would talk about the games, and he would ask questions that were outside the norm. Jeff Keighley was professional, but they all had their PR prepared questions. They would ask, how are you guys working on this game? What are you planning on implementing? And the answer were all cookie cutter answers. You know, we're working really hard on this game. We're trying to make it as fun as possible. We're just not really sure when it's going to be out and all this stuff. And every one of the developers kind of said the same things because based off a trailer on a game that doesn't have a whole lot of information, you can't really ask specific questions.
Even Joel kept on asking, so when's it release? Well, we can't really say. Well, when's it release? I'm going to have to kill you if you know. It's just like, what?
Yeah, and he pretty much said what I was thinking whenever they cut to like some of the segments where the people just seem completely brain dead. He was definitely the high point, and that's pretty sad.
Yeah, pretty much.
Do you think the VGA or VGXs, whatever they call them from now on, do they matter?
No, they never have. Because quite frankly, I mean, the way this is all set up, it's pretty much a corporate event. It's basically set up as a way to show off new trailers. The awards themselves, there's no legitimacy to them. We have no idea how the nominations are come up with. We know that a council votes on the games that are nominated, whether or not they're the people that actually come up with the nominations or not, no idea. And it seems like every time, they try to implement more indie titles or whatever, they're screaming. They're hoping that including those games in their awards will basically give them some sort of legitimacy. All it is it's a bullshit stunt, basically, to give publishers a way to show off new trailers, reveal more information about new games that are coming out, generate some hype, and then they have a little song and dance between all that. There's just no credit to it.
For that matter, how would you say that ours would matter more than that?
I mean, really, what it comes down to is we have established our personalities as part of Analog Reviews through our reviews and these discussions. So you know that, I mean, it's a very personal list. I mean, basically, when you have all these journalists from around the industry coming together to vote on what game they think is their favorite game of the year, their best PlayStation game, whatever, I mean, it's just this committee of people who, their personality isn't able to show through at all. It's just like running out to a Walmart and going to the electronics section and saying, hey guys, what was your favorite game this year? And then you just get a bunch of idiots who just, yell back to you what they enjoyed and what they didn't enjoy. I mean, it's just pointless. Like I said, it's all a big song and dance that allows publishers to show off new trailers and generate some hype for their upcoming titles, for better or worse.
Well, you got to look at the other factor is on these committees, do they just play the certain mainstream games, or do they actually play every game that is published for that year and to describe?
Well, that's impossible.
And yeah, so that's another factor to put.
I don't think it's
But I mean,
possible, but That's your job. With
You
another
just can't play the games that everyone else is
You're not
playing.
gonna
You gotta
complete
pick
them
out
all.
the indies and.
You're not going to complete every game, though. I mean, that's part of the thing. I mean, some games leave a shitty first impression, and it'll grow on you. Some games, like Grand Theft Auto, for instance, you'll pop it in, you'll think, wow, this game's really fantastic, but the more you play
You
it,
can definitely play
your
every game.
experience goes
throughout the
downhill.
year. Yeah, there's not more than 4 or 5 games like every month they come out, even like in a busy season. I get close to playing
Bullshit.
every
Look on
notable
Steam.
game.
Look on Steam. Like, every week there's like 4 new games released, and some of them, yeah, are probably like 3 or 4 hours, but even still, like, you can't feasibly play every game.
Not every game, but every notable, somewhat worthwhile game. Like, I can't play some game that, some guy spent half an hour on and put it out somewhere on the internet.
It's possible for them to have played, I'd say, the majority of every game, but I think it's highly unlikely. Most of them probably didn't. And a lot of our favorite games for the year weren't even nominated.
Maybe some of them were nominated in other categories, but their category system didn't really make any sense. And going back to what Trent said, I would say that there is a problem with identity, and that's part of the reason it doesn't matter. Say I like IGN or some other review site, I kind of trust their reviews and I like their opinion on games, but when we come to the VGAs, it's like 10 different sites contributing into it, and some sites have more weight than others, like Polygon's represented 3 times there in their council. So you lose the sense of identity, and you might have input from places you don't even care about, kind of pulling in on the game.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear from the nominations and basically the winners of each category that we can pretty much gather that basically this council really liked Bioshock Infinite, they really liked The Last of Us, and they really liked Grand Theft Auto 5. And going back to what Nathan was saying about their awards not making any sense, basically it looked like they kind of just said, okay, we really like these 3 games, so let's just kind of split up the awards so that each of these games is represented a couple times. And basically, how much we
Let's
enjoyed
look at a
these
few of
games
the categories real quick here. Let's say, okay, so the game of the year was Grand Theft Auto 5. Nominated was Bioshock Infinite, Super Mario 3D World, The Last of Us, and Tomb Raider. Yet, Best RPG was Ni no Kuni Wrath of the Right Witch, Final Fantasy XIV, Fire Emblem, Pokemon XY were nominated. Okay, Best Action Adventure Game, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, The Last of Us, Tomb Raider, and Grand Theft Auto 5 were all nominees in there. So, somehow a game that's not even a nominee on Game of the Year wins Best Action Adventure Game against 3 contenders in the Game of the Year, and the Game of the Year itself.
Probably because they sat down and decided, we really like Assassin's Creed. Let's find a way to give an award. Again, there's no credibility to this.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's certainly no consistency in these awards. Best Xbox Game, Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons won that against Bioshock Infinite, Grand Theft Auto 5, Tomb Raider. Those 3 were Game of the Year contenders, yet not good enough to win Best Xbox Game. And as far as, let me see, Best Indie Game, A Tale of Two Sons wasn't nominated there, if that's the category to be represented in. And instead, Gone Home won that one.
It also wasn't nominated in Best PC Game, and it also came out on the PC, so...
If you look at Studio of the Year, that's definitely pretty stupid as well. Like, Naughty Dog won Studio of the Year over Rockstar, even though Grand Theft Auto 5 got Game of the Year. And it's not like any of these studios have released more than 1 game this year. Naughty Dog only released The Last of Us, and Rockstar only released Grand Theft Auto 5. So, by that logic, why wouldn't Rockstar win Best Studio if Grand Theft Auto 5 is Game of the Year?
Well, frankly, I mean, I think you could make a case, like, for a studio to win Best Studio of the Year when they don't necessarily have the best game of the year. I think, maybe DLC releases that are noteworthy, or maybe they create a game that's just really innovative and forward-thinking. That could be a merit for winning Best Studio of the Year, but maybe not necessarily Best Game of the Year. Because frankly, I think Fulbright Company probably should have won. I mean, they're a startup. First game was Gone Home. They released it. It was extremely innovative, had a really great story and narrative structure. All these other studios, Irrational, Naughty Dog, and Rockstar, I like them, but they basically just released games that they've essentially done before. I mean, Rockstar's had plenty of practice with Grand Theft Auto, and there was very little that was actually new about Grand Theft Auto 5. Naughty Dog's Last of Us basically followed that heavy cinematic structure that Uncharted has popularized, and, Bioshock follows that same formula that Bioshock pioneered in 2007.
Maybe Naughty Dog just has like better benefits for their workers or something. I don't know.
Maybe Naughty Dog just has more attractive employees. I don't know.
So ultimately, I think it kind of comes down to the way these award categories worked out. It looks like an advertising tactic. BioShock Infinite can say, I'm the best shooter, and Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, that studio can say, we got best Xbox game, where if it was just game of the year, there's some reason that they put this on here.
First
It's
of
so they
all,
could
how does
add a
that
tag to
work?
their
They
game.
benefit from this.
How does that work
yeah.
exactly when people release Game of the Year editions of their games? What decides that? Is it this, or can they just release a Game of the Year edition of their game just for the hell of it? There's so many Game of the Year edition games that are released. There's a Borderlands 2 Game of the Year edition. There's the Walking
think it has
Dead
to win
Game of the
somewhat.
Year edition. There's Dishonored Game of the Year edition. There's like 6 Game of the Year editions for games that came out last year, and it makes no fucking sense.
Well, that's just it. I mean, there is no de facto game of the year. It all comes down to, oh look, some Slovenian publication gave us game of the year, so we can release a game of the year edition. It doesn't really matter. So
I
long
think
as you
it
probably
also comes down to their sales. Because the Xbox had the Platinum editions, didn't they?
Yeah, but when you go forward and you can make, like The Last of Us, if they make a new, I mean, they wouldn't really need a publicity, but let's say they make another Uncharted game after this, they can say they had the PlayStation game of 2013. There's got to be some sort of advertising thing that's going on.
It's less about the publicity because a lot of these games have already sold a tremendous number of copies, and it's more about just a AAA circle jerk of these are the games that we really, really, really like this year, and we want to talk about them some more.
Yeah. I know in some of the past awards they have given out duplicate awards though, like one game would win Best PlayStation Game and Game of the Year and stuff like that. I don't know why this year was so different.
I think they should just get rid of the best PlayStation game and best 360 game or Xbox game.
No, don't get rid of it.
It should be
Yeah, make it
exclusive only.
exclusive. Because yeah, it makes no sense to say Game of the Year and then have a redundant award for Best Xbox or Best PlayStation Game.
Yeah, they should not include multi-platform games in that category.
So we'll move on to the trailers. What trailers did you guys like that were revealed, or expanded gameplay if they weren't revealed? What games are you just in general excited about for next year?
Well, my most anticipated games are Dark Souls 2 and The Evil Within, but there wasn't really any new trailers for that. I guess my favorite trailer from VGX was for the Division. Definitely looking forward to that.
I've been looking forward to Infamous Second Son since I really liked first two. And of course Dark Souls 2. The Division, I haven't really been following it, but I'm looking forward to that.
I thought No Man's Sky was rather fun, and I don't know if it was the most impressive, but it gave a sense of dating back to the nostalgia of space and exploration.
Yeah, that game looked interesting. The interview was particularly funny when he kept going on and on about 4 guys making the game. I'm not sure how that game's going to turn out. That's the first thing I've really heard about that game. I don't know it was revealed earlier, but that's the first I've personally heard about it. It seems like it's going to be a bunch of randomly generated worlds, though, and I don't know how interesting that's going to be after you've seen a few of them and they just start looking like different colors and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting idea, but it might be a bit too ambitious of a project for 4 guys to handle if they're like designing an entire universe with hundreds of different planets and everything. Definitely sounds like a cool idea. I mean, I'll check it out.
Oh yeah, the concept is very ambitious, but we'll see how it forms in the later days.
Well, first off, I just have to say that the Gearbox Telltale Games collaboration is kind of nonsensical. So you're basically taking a company whose strength is adventure games, storytelling, and you're combining basically those strengths with a property who's based on cooperative gameplay and loot. Like, those are the two things that make Borderlands what it is and making it as enjoyable as it is. And don't get me wrong, Borderlands has some funny characters, but I don't see how this is going to work out in a Telltale Games adventure-style game. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I was kind of surprised and stupefied by that, because it just seems completely offbeat. I was kind of interested in the Game of Thrones Telltale game, however, being a big Game of Thrones fan, and I think that lends itself well to Telltale's strengths, and after seeing what they've done with The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us, I think that could be pretty intriguing. But by far, the most interesting trailer for me was The Witcher 3. I am the resident Witcher fanboy here at Analog Reviews, so I've been eagerly awaiting that, and the game's looking pretty good. I'm a little hesitant about the open world structure, and I hope it doesn't become Skyrim, because that will upset me, and I'll probably quit playing video games if that happens.
I agree with you on the whole Gearbox and Telltale. Like, the strong point about Borderlands is the multiplayer and the gameplay aspect. The story is fun and humorous to go along with it, but that's not the main reason I play the game. So it's weird that they're focusing on a game that's so based on its gameplay. I don't see how that's
It
gonna
was
work
an
out that
added
much.
package to the whole ordeal. It just made it fun and enjoyable.
Yeah. As far as The Witcher 3, I'm actually excited because of the open world, because that was the main thing I didn't like about the second one when playing through, is how linear it was. After playing games like Dragon Age and other RPG games that are open and let you explore and kind of make your own way through the game the way you want to, being an open world game actually got me a little more excited about that game. If it can still maintain some sort of structure and quest design that's not just fetch quests and go here and there and become another Skyrim, Elder Scrolls type game.
But understand, I mean, The Witcher 2 its narrative was so strong because you're confined and you're focused on the narrative. It's not about adding a bunch of bullshit for the sake of adding another 20 hours to the game. That's my whole argument for The Witcher 2 structure.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they can't do that with an open world. It's just harder. And
I'm not saying they
more
can't,
kudos
but
to them
yeah,
if they can do
again,
it.
which is why I'm a little hesitant.
As far as my game, I'm most excited about The Division as well. That game looks fantastic graphically, as well as the gameplay and the whole premise of it as a whole. Escape from New York feel, and I like multiplayer games that are original and spend a lot of hours on. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And the tech demo, more or less, or what it showed for the new trailer, was pretty good. So how'd you like the feel of this show compared to last year with like Samuel L. Jackson and the big crowd and concerts and everything, versus this year was like at the back of some restaurant or whatever they were doing and completely unprepared and ad lib?
Well, I think you just answered your own question there with that setup. So do you guys like Samuel L. Jackson better, or do you like, filming it behind the Applebee's on 7th Street?
Yeah, the Applebee's with like a Mercedes Benz and a balcony, and it was. I liked it better. I find it annoying when they pay all these like celebrities to come who obviously don't play games and talk about games and stuff, and they have this awkward dialogue. Samuel L. Jackson's like in his 60s now. Like, I doubt he plays a whole lot of video games. It's just weird when he talks about games. He's like, "Oh, I bet you guys are excited about Halo." It's so scripted.
Yeah,
It's
but
just
this was
awkward
pretty
to watch.
scripted. With the exception of Mikhail, like, running off script, this was equally scripted and bad. It was just a different flavor
Like I said,
of bad.
Mikhail made it worth watching for me.
He probably won't be back next year because I'm sure he's pissed off a bunch of producers and stuff.
Hopefully they bring back Conan O'Brien or something.
Yeah, personally, I didn't really like the way it was last year or the way it was this year. It was basically from one extreme to another. Last year was a
Agreed.
bit too Hollywood. They were trying to make it like the Oscars, and like you said, it had a whole bunch of celebrities in general talking about video games that they've obviously never played. And this year, it was just a little too ad-libbed, a little too unorganized, and lacking structure. I really didn't like that whole emphasis on like the GTA concert, and then like cutting to those guys. I guess they were musicians, just talking about nothing. Like there's some guy there who was just like cheering about potatoes or something. They're obviously just like completely high. It was retarded.
Kings of
And I doubt,
ADHD.
yeah, and I doubt any of those guys play video games either. They did. They didn't seem knowledgeable at all about anything.
I don't know. I think it's fucking hilarious that you can watch a reward show and they announce the game of the year and all you get is like from the back some guy clapping about the game, like complete silence when they're getting their award. I thought it was so bad it was good in some aspects because of how funny it was.
Yeah, it wasn't even like trying to be funny though. It was just like terrible. You're laughing at them and not with them.
It was better than just like putting a hand over my face when Samuel L. Jackson is introducing games and stuff and vaguely talking about Spartan Ops for Halo. I had more fun watching it this year than last year. Last year I just thought it was unbearable. This year I was laughing at it at least.
Either way, I mean, it's a train wreck. I think there really
It's
needs to be-
awful either way.
There needs to be someone far more clever and savvy than I. Needs to come up with a way to present video game awards that, one, makes sense for what they are, and two, it can't be a copy of the Oscars. I don't think this format works either. I mean, there has to be some way to do this that's more engaging to the target audience, that holds a bit more credibility, and will ultimately be more satisfying for us as gamers, and something we'll actually want to pay attention to. Because, I mean, as it stands, this is just like the ass end of every joke that gamers are throwing out right now. It's been really bad.
Yeah, a hybrid between what it was this year and last year. Maybe at least have like a few people in the restaurant or wherever they're at like watching it, so it's not like three guys clapping when they win an award.
Yeah, I remember.
Invite
I
some
forget
industry
which
people.
I forget which award it was exactly, but like no one even clapped, and Joe McHale like started yelling at them to start clapping.
I don't know. Ultimately, what they're doing is just not working. They really need to rethink their approach to how to present awards for video games. There needs to be a greater sense of credibility because I just feel like this whole event might as well be run by every PR firm that's part of these large publishers because it just, like I said, it's a way for them to pitch their new trailers, generate hype for games that are coming out, and celebrate just how successful the games that they released this year actually were. I can never take this seriously, like the way it is. It just there needs to be a rubric. There needs to be something like telling me like how the hell these games are nominated, why they're worth a shit, and explain to me why I should care. Because it's just like throwing awards out left and right for the same 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, there really needs to just be a balance between the two. Meet somewhere in the middle between like the big Hollywood award show and the half-assed ad-lib thing in the restaurant. And like you said, it needs to be more credible. They need to find a host who's actually, respectable and knowledgeable in video games, and not just some celebrity who's obviously just
So,
reading
Well, Jeff
lines.
Keighley
Sweetie Pie?
Jeff Keighley is knowledgeable and respectable in video games. It's just
He is.
he's very professional, and I thought Joel stole the show because it was a very boring show to watch without him.
If Jeff wasn't on the script, he would have been a lot better, I think.
Who they need is Conan O'Brien. Like, he's definitely the expert in anything video game related.
Yeah, he's the greatest reviewer of all time. Everyone knows that. I mean, I think they could certainly do it worse. Like, the worst way I think it could be done is a popular vote, where you just have everybody vote in like American Idol style, and you just pick games because it would pretty much be the best-selling game, or exclusives wouldn't really have a chance because they didn't reach as wide of an audience, let alone there's a lot of people out there that play 5 games a year that really don't
If that.
have an opinion. If you play 3 to 5 games a year, I'm sorry, but you need to actually play a good range of the games that come out that year before you can say which one's the best. We run across that all the time in comments for our reviews and stuff, and talking about how this is the greatest game, Raptor or whatever, and you look at their profile, they've played 22 games in the last 8 years.
Yeah, pretty much. If it went purely off of a popular vote, it's basically just going to reflect the sales figures, and in which this case it sort of did with Grand Theft Auto. But yeah, it would mainly just be games like GTA and Call of Duty and stuff like that winning every year if it was just popular vote.
Yeah, that'd be the worst way you could do it. I think a council system is. I mean, I can see how that's. I can't think of a better way off the top of my head, having a bunch of credible reviewers from around the industry voting on a game, but I'm not really sure how these votes come to be.
It's not the council system in itself that I have an issue with, but the way the council is balanced, and it is kind of a narrow selection of people that are actually voting. I think it'd also be compelling to see maybe some people who are not actively at a studio making games, but who are figureheads within the industry coming in and voting on this council. It'd be very similar to the way in which the Oscars work. And again, I don't think the Oscars are a benchmark for credibility either, but it's still a better representation of its industry than the VGX or VGAs are of the video game industry.
I think a good way to do it would be the popular vote, except there's some sort of requirement to vote first. Like, I don't know of a way to actually prove this unless you go by achievements or your Steam library or something like that, where you have to buy at least 30 games a year to vote or something along those lines.
Submit like your tax returns and every time you bought a game.
Submit your receipt.
Yeah, you gotta submit
go.
like at least 20 receipts with it to be counted as a vote. Have more than one platform.
Yeah, would be more accurate that way.
Yeah, but that's just not realistic. As far as, was there a part of the show that was the absolute worst to me? It was a tie between PewDiePie and the guys that were ADHD that were introducing the concert. Anyone have any other part that was just unbearable?
I really didn't care for the whole 20 minutes they spent talking about like the best Donkey Kong players in the world. Sorry, I really care. I mean, Donkey Kong was a great game in its day, and it was definitely influential, but I really don't care who the best Donkey Kong player is in the world now, 30 years later, and I really didn't care for that GTA concert at all. Not a fan of rap music, but I really didn't like those guys that kept cutting to, who were just talking about nothing. And they spent a lot of time just cutting to them. They had probably a total of 10 minutes airtime where they talked about absolutely nothing. Just potatoes. Yeah.
Someone didn't see King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters.
I saw.
It was epic.
I've
Epic,
seen that
wasn't it?
documentary. It was good.
Fucking Billy Mitchell, that dickhead.
He was in the segment they showed, but yeah, he wasn't really playing. He's not the best anymore, so. But yeah, they had some guy that was working out, and he's like, Donkey Kong is like working out. You just have to keep improving yourself more and more. And I go to the gym every day, and I train more and more, and I become more and more like the Kong. Once I understand the enemy and I can throw the barrels like the enemy, I can beat the enemy. I am the third best in the world, but there's no question. There is no question that I am the best in the world. Third means nothing. It means nothing!
Steve Wiebe would still kick his ass. King of Kong is proof.
Yeah, it was a good document.
The whole program itself was very unorganized, and the presentation for each game and segment and interviews was just very awkward and not really well done.
Alright, so pretty much we tend to all agree the VGAs don't really matter. It's a heavy political system. It's a marketing tool. The awards contradict each other. It's unbearable to watch. And it seems to be put together by a lot of guys not in the industry, and this year some guys that should have not been in the industry put it together, I guess. I don't know. It's just kind of a joke.
A very bad joke.
Kind of like watching the launch videos for the PS4 and Xbox One.
Nah, this was like watching a total train wreck. Like at the end when they're introducing the concert and they have to like go over everything, they're not sure whether they should read the lines again, and I think we just said that. Oh no, let's say it anyways. No, this is exactly what we just said. Like, it was so poorly put together, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like they didn't even rehearse it once or anything. They just said, okay, let's do this. And that's about it. No organization whatsoever.
A bunch of developers that are being heavily monitored by their PR guys and stuff aren't very interesting to talk to either, because they can't really go into detail on anything. They can't really say anything. So they all say the same things, and you don't really realize that much when you're watching these videos individually, where you're watching developers talk about games. But when you're watching a show that's 3 fucking hours long, for Christ's sake, about developers back to back, they're all like saying the exact same things about their games because they can't go into detail on anything. You know, it's pointless. So that concludes our discussion of the VGA, VGXs, whatever they're going to be calling it from this point forward. It's pretty much a big marketing tool. It's poorly put together. It's borderline unwatchable. But go ahead and follow us on Analog Reviews. We're going to be doing our own Game of the Years later this year, and we'll have a discussion video along with it so that you guys understand our process and how we come to the conclusions that we do. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.